Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Excited to be here today with, of course, it being Monday, we will have the one and only honest Republican Party member in the country on our show with us. The only one. Actually, we will have Charity Lynch on with us. She gives me a hard time when I say that because, of course, that makes all her peers in the GOP mad at her. Why is Red saying you're the only? No, there's a lot of good people there, and we're getting a lot more. Actually, we'll have some great news out of Oklahoma on that. But I want to talk about Ukraine today. I want to talk about Zelensky. I want to talk about the fact that Zelensky and Ukraine seem to think that they can somehow force American kids to go die in their crap war. Their crap war that I don't even care about. I got to be honest with you. I care zero about what happens with that clown show over there. And certainly I'm not going to be willing to stand aside while my kids are conscripted to go die in Ukraine. I've asked a question, and I posted a thread on this, but I'm going to be real honest with you. For any of you guys that have the Ukraine flag in your profile, I got an idea. How about you guys sign your kids up? Send them over. You can volunteer them now. You don't have to wait for a war. You can just volunteer. They're accepting volunteers in Ukraine. Just sign your kids up, send them to Ukraine. Kiss them goodbye first because they probably won't come back. And after they die on the battlefield, you can feel good and tell all your friends how good of a liberal you were because you sent your kids to die in Ukraine. For me, I'd rather that my kids stay right here and get back to America first. Anyways, so that's going on. We got that. There's also a really interesting story. This is, so I don't know. Bobby's out here. Bobby's up at the HHS, and people are pretty fussy about his measles op-ed over the weekend, which I can't say I loved it. I can't, but he is having a huge impact. And one of the things that's happening is there is actually a peer-reviewed study now on vaccine-induced long COVID, something we all know was happening. We all know it's there, but, no one really wanted to talk about it. Now, all of a sudden, well, maybe we're going to acknowledge that it is. Now, the way that they did it's ridiculous because they're really trying to downplay it, and they're doing this in a way to try and cut it off. But, at least it's an improvement, right? So, I don't know whether to take the good with the bad or what we do here, but it's moving in the right direction. So before I bring on the only honest Republican in America, I want to first, I got a grift. Joking. There's a lot of good GOP people, at least 6 of them. Anyways, we do need your help. We do need your support. Please go to givesendgo.com/Renslaw. Givesendgo.com/Renslaw. $20 a month. Just need $20 a month. Makes all the difference for us. It's a huge help. And also, please go to tomrenz.com and check out our affiliate page. You go right here, shop, and you see right here as partners and affiliates. Go down to Cardio Miracle. I am using Cardio Miracle. I'm using it a lot, and it's really a remarkable product. I love this stuff. It does, you actually feel a difference from this. I've been truly impressed with this. It does a lot of different things. The nitric oxide is interesting. You guys should look into that, especially if you're a guy with heart issues. That has some impacts that I'm not going to get into them here. This show's for kids. But there are things that you might want to look at there. That nitric oxide is a active ingredient or part of the active compound in certain little blue pills that also has an impact on people. Just saying. But Cardio Miracle, wonderful product, does amazing things. It's great for your heart, great for your health. Protect yourself. Get Cardio Miracle. Okay. Without further ado, I want to bring on the one and only, the most honest GOP member in the country, Charity Lynch. How you doing, Charity?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Getting me in trouble every day. I see how you are.
I try. Hey, huge breaking news. Trump institutes military draft for everyone with the Ukraine flag in their Facebook profile.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. That's Babylon B, so it's probably we can say it's fake news, but it's at least as good as CNN.
That's good.
Yeah, but anyways, I love the Babylon Bee. I saw this, and this kind of tickles me because So Alex Jones was viral this weekend, as Alex Jones almost always is, and he was sharing a video from, I don't know, a few months back, Zelensky talking about the fact that they're going to have American kids come and die in Ukraine. And to me, I don't think there's any question that if Harris had won the presidential election, that's where we'd be moving. I think we'd be, boots on the ground over there any minute now, if not already. I think we'd be looking at allowing Ukraine into NATO. I think it would be an absolute disaster from beginning to end. And I think we'd be sending our kids over there to die. As a leading member of the GOP, as a person who is connected with the grassroots on a universal basis through the Freedom Brigades, and as just an awesome leader across the board. What do you think about this? Are you hearing people that are like, "Yeah, let's go die in Ukraine; it'll be great"? Or
no, I'm not hearing that. I keep hearing about these people that are changing their profile pictures to the Ukrainian flag. I haven't seen that, but I think those people probably unfollowed me by now. So I'm not really seeing a lot of that. I believe it. I stayed with Trump. Trump was right in all of it. You could see when Zelensky started getting that little man syndrome and he started getting really mad before he ever even said anything. Trump said, look, the guy doesn't want peace. He's not interested in peace. And if we get involved in the negotiations, then he thinks that means that we're on his side and he's going to use it to his advantage. And he's not interested. I agree with Trump. No, we don't need to go get involved. We don't need to send our people. Zelensky needs to just go away is what needs to happen. He needs to just go away. But no, we don't need to be sending our babies over there.
Well, what are you hearing? What are you hearing? Because all joking aside, you're tied in with grassroots. You're tied in with people, and you do have your ear to the ground across the country. I mean, outside of neocons and Democrats, I can't really find anybody that supports this at all. And even the neocons are starting to shake a little bit. What are you hearing on this?
Same. I'm only hearing people's outrage, their support for Trump. I actually did hear one lady that used to live in Ukraine that said that there was just a misunderstanding with some of the words, like when Zelensky said that Vance was being loud, that loud means you don't know what you're talking about, or we just think loud means loud. I think Trump actually did understand that, though. When he said, no, he's not being loud. I think he did interpret that correctly. So that is the most I have heard from the grassroots that had any sympathy at all for Zelensky. Everyone is completely behind Trump on this. The patriots, anyone with common sense, is behind Trump.
I just don't see. I mean, I know that some of our neocon crew were pretty excited about the minerals and the rare earth stuff over there. But that's really, I mean, we got plenty of that here in this country, frankly, if we would just mine it. So, I don't really know what or why we would even care. I mean, there's no strategic value in Ukraine. They don't do anything beneficial. They're one of the most corrupt nations on the planet. They literally have a Nazi regiment in their military. I mean, the Azov Battalion is literally, I mean, they're pro-Nazi. I mean, there's no question about it. New York Times, Reuters, all these people have talked about it. They've documented it. They've showed it. But yet we're still, dinking around back and forth like, yeah, maybe we want to support these guys. I'm not getting it. What am I missing?
I think Trump was trying to negotiate peace.
Absolutely.
That's all it was about for him. And when that was off the table, we're going to be fine without it. Without the neocon, we're going to be fine without the without the things that we were talking about trading back and forth. He wasn't doing that for any substantial value. He was trying to get peace.
Yeah.
And since Zelensky will not have anything to do with that, I mean, the deal's off.
Yeah.
I don't. The American people are not upset about it. It's those that have been against America or those that don't think for themselves and just listen to what the media says. I mean, Pence put out this. Did you see that tweet that Donald Trump put out? Pence put out a tweet saying, condemning the president and blah, blah, blah. And so Trump comes and says, was there ever a better upgrade than from Pence to Vance ever
Yeah,
in
I
the
saw
history
that.
of mankind. But that tells you who's who. The people that have always been lying to us, that have always been manipulating, are the only ones that are for this, and that are backing Ukraine and that want us to get involved.
I'm
This is
100% in
tragic.
agreement. I'm
Huh?
100% in agreement with you. Now, on my Twitter, I did
Mhm.
this. I broke this down. I did a little thread where I broke
Yes.
down some of the stuff on this argument, because what Zelensky was trying to do, and what they're trying to do specifically, is they're trying to say, listen, we got to get into NATO. You got to let us in NATO, and then once we're there, Article 5 of NATO means that the U.S. has to respond militarily. Now, that is not entirely correct, in my opinion, and let me explain why. So here's a little bit of a law lesson for everybody, a little bit of a breakdown of how the law works. So treaties in the United States have the authority of federal law if they're ratified, right? So when a treaty is created, the president can enter into an executive agreement with anybody he wants to, but for it to have the validity of a treaty, it has to be ratified by the Senate. Once the president makes an agreement and the Senate ratifies it, it's an official treaty, and that treaty carries with it the weight of law equivalent to any other statute or law in this country, roughly, right? I mean, there's some give or take. But it first thing is it can never supersede the Constitution, right? So the Constitution is always the law of the land, and no treaty can ever invalidate or come before the Constitution in any way, shape, or form. That can't happen. So it's never more powerful than the Constitution. It's always subject to the Constitution. Anything done in a treaty that goes beyond the Constitution is invalid. So there's that, right? Now, NATO as an organization was created on what's called the North Atlantic Treaty, NAT, right? The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was created as a result of NAT. Okay, so the North Atlantic Treaty was done back in 1949, and it was ratified. So it is law in the United States. It's official. It's there. It's a part of our code. And yeah, we are there, and it's good, right? Right. We want to support our allies. Now, once a treaty is ratified in the United States, and this is more law than anybody wants to know, but I'm going to share it. You then have to look and see, well, is it what's called self-executing or non-self-executing, right? So you can have a treaty that says we want all the members of this treaty to pass laws to improve the public health by whatever it is, right? And then that treaty can be valid, but until the nations pass their own laws, it's not executed, right? So that would be a non-self-executing treaty. A self-executing treaty is one that says, as soon as this treaty is signed, all nations signing on to this treaty agree to do A, B, or C, right? So a self-executing treaty means that within the body of the treaty, there is authorization to create law within the country, or obligation within the country. A non-self-executing treaty means that you have to pass separate law to carry out whatever the treaty's agreeing to. Okay. Now, NATO and the North Atlantic Treaty is kind of breaks down into two parts. It's both self-executing and non-self-executing, depending on the part. At least that's the general consensus view amongst lawyers. And unlike science, consensus does matter in law. So that's kind of the thing, right? Now, the key and most relevant part of NATO, especially with regards to Zelensky's little plan, let me get into NATO and then force America to send their boys to go die, is Article 5. Now, Article 5 is right here. This is actually a screenshot from the National Archives. And you can see right here what it says. It says the parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all. And consequently, they agree that if such an armed attack occurs, each of them in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense, recognized by Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, will assist the party or parties attacked by taking forthwith, individually and in concert with other parties, such actions as it deems necessary, including the use of armed force to restore and maintain security of the North Atlantic area. Okay, so here's the catch. And it goes on to talk about the Security Council, and other. And this is all really important, but here's the catch. What this does not do is specify what sort of actions are necessary or who gets to decide what's necessary in any very specific way. So there's room for wiggle here. A creative lawyer would say, would argue that there's room for wiggle, and it has to be, right? So if you understand this treaty, you would understand that no nation is going to enter a treaty that would give control of their military to someone else, right? That would be absolutely stupid. So
the Democrats could have very well done it, but okay, we didn't do it.
The Democrats would like to do it, but no sane nation would ever do that, right?
Right.
The military is, and under our Constitution, you couldn't enter into that treaty anyways, because the military is under the control of the president. He cannot delegate it out to a foreign nation. Okay, I just don't think that would hold up constitutionally. He can certainly work in concert with a foreign nation, but ultimately he is the commander in chief, and that can't be changed per the plain text of the Constitution. So with Article 5, we are obligated to respond and to work if one of the NATO alliance members are attacked, right? But what does that mean? Well, nobody likes little man Zelensky. He just blew that. And nobody really likes this war. Nobody really wants to be a part of this war. So what does that mean? What does respond? What sort of response? Well, I mean, our military response could be sending a box of bullets. Send them 20 rounds of 5.56 and call it a day, right? There's no obligation as to the extent, and there can't be. And you can argue. People could say, "Well, listen, Renz, you're misreading the intent of this. The intent is that all the parties are going to try and back each other. If any of them are attacked, okay, that may be true." But let's look at the counter to that. What if we were already in a separate war? What if we had civil unrest? What if there's something going on? Are we obligated to send every last piece of our military to go fight for Ukraine if we're having other troubles? I mean, think about this in context of World War II. World War II, America was at war on two fronts, right? Europe was primarily focused on Europe and Germany, but we had Japan as well. Would we have signed a treaty where we would have been obligated to pull out of everything in our war with Japan to put everything we had into the European front? Of course we wouldn't have signed that. Of course we wouldn't have. The discretion over how we use our military and how we participate in that self-defense has always been left to the nations, and it will always be left to the nations because no one would ever do it otherwise. Otherwise, you're essentially turning your nation over to another country. So this is kind of an absurd thing, and no one thinks that, right? Nobody believes that. There's also some other things here, right? So even if Article 5 is self-executing in the sense that we're obligated to do something if another NATO nation's attacked, it certainly doesn't mean that we're obligated to send a full military force, have a bunch of our guys die. I mean, we can send drones over there to watch for crossers on the border. I mean, whatever. So.
That's fair.
Yeah,
they didn't define what it is, so that's a very great argument.
Yeah,
you can define what the help is.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, Zelensky and his nonsense that somehow he can force us into this. Well, it isn't going to work, even if he is able to corruptly get himself into NATO. Further, even if Trump were pushed and attacked, all these different things into doing this, even if we had Kamala Harris in, for example, well, there is another issue. One of the things that is not self-executing about NATO is funding, right? The funding is very much left to the discretion of the countries. So we are absolutely not required to fund that, nor, is the president able. We've got the War Powers Act. So you've got a bit of a conflict of law, right? The president can't declare war without congressional approval. Now, does NATO and the NATO obligation somehow supersede that? And that's unclear under the law. It's certainly not clear that it does, nor that it doesn't. I would argue that some of the war powers laws were enacted after NATO, and those restrictions would probably thus supersede NATO because of the timeline, right? Congress intended for them to come into play after NATO was signed, so those are probably a part of the consideration, and should be. They should be. So this is something that we really have to think about here, right? We also need to really. Well, first of all, let me ask you. Let me pause for 1 second. Charity, is this making sense? Is this analysis making sense?
It is making sense. It's really interesting, the take on it. I love it when you break down because it's so simple. It really is. I can't believe that this guy is causing such a stir anyway. He has such little man syndrome. I mean, I don't know how much of it, because to tell you the truth, I have worried about taking back America and haven't done a lot with the world stage, but there has been a lot of murmurings of money that's been funneled through Ukraine, biolabs. How much of that has been proven? I mean, why they seem to be this place where there's a lot of corruption that funnels through them.
Listen, we know, and I have loads of documentation. Ukraine did have biolabs doing bioweapon research from the United States on their soil, prior to the Russian invasion. That was not incorrect. We know that those labs existed. They were on. I literally have screenshots from the U.S. Embassy website admitting to it, right? So, that's not a really debatable thing. In fact, I'm working on a book right now and was just talking about some of that. So this is absolutely a thing, but the reality is that the arms trafficking looks very real. We send them all these weapons, we send them all this money, they take our weapons and then resell them to terrorists. That's the story, right? And that looks like that's a real thing.
Or didn't they funnel some of that money back to the Democrat Party? Wasn't there some of that?
Yeah. Loads of it. And the Republicans, I think. I think there were certain Republicans. You may not be the only honest Republican in the country, but there are plenty of crooked rhinos in the Republican Party.
I agree with you. We've got to clean the party up, which is why I'm here.
There's a reason that some of these guys are willing to die on the hill of Ukraine. It's because they were getting money from Ukraine, kicked back into their campaigns. I think Musk is going to be uncovering a lot of that. But
did you see what he? I'm sorry. Did you see what he uncovered this week?
Which thing?
Musk. So they had $12 billion. I don't mean to change subjects. You can stay on this for me. $12 billion given to the Navy to build submarines. You know how many they built?
Probably zero.
None.
Yeah.
12 billion. Who gets away with that except the federal government?
They meant to build them.
Huh?
They meant to build them, though. They really wanted.
They did. I'm sure they did. Surely they're
going to give that money
accidentally
back.
fell in their pockets instead, and they can't account for what happened to that $12 billion.
Well, no, it got misplaced.
He said that he could save $100 billion by just having the government agencies say where their money is going to. That would save us $100 billion a year. Anyway, we can go back to this. I'm sorry.
No, 100%. Listen, this is a very real issue. But listen, that money has to be spent. We just saw, every year we were funding the World Economic Forum. And,
absolutely. We're not just slaves to our own government. We're slaves to the entire world. Producer Andrea said that earlier.
But I read there's a real issue though. We have to fund the WEF. I read an article that explained it all. It said that when the World Economic Forum has their Davos meeting every year,
yes,
Well, they fly in hookers from all over the world, and they're the most expensive hookers on the planet. If we don't fund them, how can they pay for these hookers?
Well, I mean, I know our federal government was right behind that. Did you know that he found 100 intelligence staffers that were turning government servers into porn chat rooms?
I did see that. Well, I mean, listen, you got to talk about it somewhere.
Oh my God. You can't make this stuff up. Like, just when you think you've uncovered how crooked this is, it gets worse.
Just listen. I mean, these are good. These are public servants. They are giving their life to try and make America better. And, just because they want to talk about gay sex orgies in government chat rooms doesn't mean that they aren't. Now, the only thing that I'm confused about is I'm pretty sure that we just had the Me Too thing and all this sexual harassment stuff. And, I'm not sure how talking about having a gay porn chat room in an intelligence agency is not running afoul of some of those things. But maybe because it's gay, it's not sexual harassment because it's only straight sex.
Me Too was only if you're a conservative, or that does not apply to liberals like everything else. It's a double standard, don't you know?
So Me Too doesn't apply to trans talking about sex with children or something. Okay, this is sick beyond words. I mean, it really is. It's a mess. But hey, I want to get back to Ukraine real quick and finish. Let's go back to Ukraine. I'm almost done. And then we can get back to government waste.
No, I'm good. We don't got to go. I enjoy this.
So here's the thing. Ultimately, legally, I don't think that we're obliged to do a damn thing for Ukraine, even if they were able to worm their way in. But what I think was going to happen, and I think what Donald Trump is in the midst of preventing, is I think that Zelensky's goal was to worm his way into NATO. They were planning on having a Harris presidency, which means, no one's running the country because she's, drunk all the time and confused. And I think that what they were going to do is, once she was in, she'd give the blessing on letting Ukraine into NATO. NATO would let her in. Then they'd invoke Article 5, and she'd say, I have no choice but to send the kids over and do that, even though she does legally have a choice. She doesn't have to do that. That's what I think was going to happen. I think this was set up to be, the next World War or the next ongoing conflict without end. And I think that, honestly, Trump getting in there, Musk doing what he's doing on Doge, I think that's really the only real reason we're not seeing this. Because, we would have had lawsuits, we'd have had all sorts of things. And they would have did whatever they had to do to force this through if they could have. So
I agree. Yeah. And that's why Zelensky was campaigning for Biden, for Harris. Biden, Harris, same thing. It was the same puppet master,
Yeah. He's campaigning for Obama's fourth term.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it really was. It was just, more corruption, more Obama nonsense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before I leave law, I want to hit, quote, "It is declared that plaintiff Hampton Dillinger is the special counsel of the Office of Special Counsel, and that he shall be the special counsel of the Office of Special Counsel for the remainder of his 5-year term, unless until he is removed in accordance with 5 U.S.C. 1211B. That is a ruling from Obama-appointed Judge Amy Berman Jackson. And that ruling was against Donald Trump, and really against separation of powers, against the Constitution, against everything else.
Yeah.
And that ruling was basically a activist Obama judge telling Donald Trump that he does not have authority to fire people who work for him in the executive branch. Where do I want to start with this? I've avoided spending too much time on the obvious parts of these. I've made a few comments on some of these things, but the most obvious and ridiculous thing here is the separation of powers issue, right? Um, so, Charity, you homeschool your babies, right?
I do. Yeah, we don't put them in
And,
government schools.
and you teach them. You've taught them a little bit about civics, I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you or your children? I believe your baby's 8, right?
At 9, one of them's
9.
9. The
Okay.
smallest is 7. Yeah.
Okay. Are your babies aware of the fact that there are 3 branches of government?
Yes.
So your 7-year-old and 9-year-old understand that there are 3 branches of government. This isn't that
Absolutely.
complicated.
No.
Okay. Those 3 branches are the executive, the judicial, and the legislative.
Correct.
Now, I don't want to confuse anybody with real complicated law or civics here, but there are 3 branches of the government. Now, if Congress or the judicial branch can decide who is working for the executive branch, and the executive branch leader, who is the president, can't fire them, is he really the leader of the executive branch? I mean, I don't want to overcomplicate this. It's not a question. I mean,
that's insane, right? That's just that the fact that they're even saying these things out loud is, when we're making different rule changes in the Republican Party to try to bring transparency in because the grassroots have the majority, we're always trying to figure out, weigh that out. Okay, how is this going to work when there's a rhino establishment in charge? Is this going to bite us later? Because this needs to be completely fair and balanced, or we're not interested in doing it. Why do they not understand when they set this precedent? I mean, that then when their guy's in place, he won't be able to fire people either. Do they not understand? Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Understand. So this was when you spend a little bit of time as a lawyer and you read enough cases and you're in front of judges, every now and then you'll run across a judge. And I've been before judges like this who, even though it's unethical and illegal, and even though you can't prove it, you get before that judge and you know that judge has determined already what they want the outcome of this case to be, right? So it's a judge. When you have a judge like that, what it's like is you're going through the motions in the case. And I've actually said to a judge before, I said, Your Honor, it appears that you're looking for an outcome rather than listening to the evidence of this case. And that does happen. That does happen. This is exactly what happened here, right? So Berman Jackson puts a 67-page opinion out. And what she's trying to do is slice and dice and distinguish the law and play with specific language and specific nonsense within the law to suggest that because of the way that the special counsel was appointed with Congress, that the president can't fire them without cause, without this, without that, right? Now, here's the problem. It's a clever ruling written by a clever judge who wanted that ruling. She doesn't care about the law. She cares about getting to that ruling, right? That's my interpretation of this.
Yeah.
And the problem is that this is a forest from the trees thing, and lawyers do this sometimes. You get going on your case and you get so focused on the nuance of a specific case that you miss the forest from the trees, right? And what I mean by that is in this case, you can slice and dice the nuance of law that's been passed. But the Constitution is quite clear. The president is in charge of the executive branch, period. It doesn't matter what law was passed after that. It doesn't matter if Congress said you can't fire this person without cause, because it's unconstitutional. The Constitution is the law. It is the supreme law. It is the boss. And you can slice and dice this nonsense about, but we passed legislation putting this person here. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. The president is in charge of executive branch, and he has to be. And any interference with that is a violation of the separation of powers. In my opinion, this judge violated separation of powers and should be impeached in a very clear way. Let me explain this.
How do you impeach a judge? I'm sorry.
The process is laid out very specifically in the Constitution. It's very much like you'd impeach anyone else. It's just the Congress impeaches them. You got to file articles of impeachment in the Congress, and if it
Okay.
works out, you boot this person, right? Um, so when you do this, when a judge does this, here's the problem: if the president didn't have total authority over who works for him, then is he really the president, right? What if he's got a military leader that's disobeying orders? He's the chief, he's the commander in chief. What if he's got, he says, okay, so my job is to faithfully execute the laws. I want my DOJ to go after this or to go after that. And they say no. If he can't fire them, then what can he do? What is his election was nullified but it would be null. It wouldn't matter if he's president. Now we just watched Obama and Biden, push the authority and the executive power of the executive branch well beyond what anybody's ever seen, and nobody complained. And this is kind of like Doge, right? Everybody wants to gripe about Doge. Well, guess what? Doge was set up under Obama. Doge is the same group now as it was under Obama. You can't complain about Doge now if you didn't complain about it under Obama, because it's the same crew. It's the same thing. They're still making software more efficient and government more efficient, just like they were for healthcare.gov when Obama brought them in under Obamacare.
It was genius. The way you broke that down in the Substack was very helpful, and that was a genius move by Trump.
It was very good. It was brilliant. And, this sort of thing is the same sort of thing. The president, is leveraging authority that he clearly has under the law. 100%. 100%. There is zero valid excuse whatsoever for this judge to interfere with the president's firing authority. It is 100% clear. In fact, if you look, we can go back and you have Celia via CFPB, right? And Collins v. Yellen, both of which are very, very, very clear that the president can fire people, right? He can fire them. Now, there are some limitations that the courts held up with for cause removal. And that's kind of what this clown's trying to hang her hat on. But at the end of the day, I would argue that even those are unconstitutional. The president has to have complete authority over his people. And, anything that limits his ability to do his job is unconstitutional. I mean, the Constitution was very clear. He's got to be the guy out there implementing law, making sure that the laws are faithfully executed. Now, you can disagree with the way he's doing it, but he's got carte blanche authority to do it how he sees best. And that's just what it is. So this is a really an egregious overreach, in my opinion. And I don't know. I hope they fire this clown.
Egregious overreach. You just described the Democrat Party completely with everything they do in every way.
From beginning to end.
From values to legal, everything that they do, egregious overreach.
I would say that's a pretty fair summary of what you see with the DNC.
Producer Andrea said that Obama gets royalties from Obamacare. Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we ended. What? He was getting, how much was he getting? Millions of dollars. He got like 32 million. It's like,
oh wow.
Yeah, wow. Musk found out he was getting like, what was it? I want to say, I think it was $32+ million since its inception.
Isn't that illegal? I mean, how can you personally gain from something you put in place? That seems like that should be illegal as it could be.
I haven't looked at it. He wouldn't be able to be criminally charged for anything he did while he was president. But afterwards, the fact that he continued receiving royalties, that may or may not be illegal. I got to be honest with you. I'd love to see Obama go to jail, but I don't think that would ever happen.
No, he'll pay in the next life, though.
Yeah, he will. It'll come back to get him. But
Nobody gets
Uh,
away with anything, guys. When you don't see them go to jail in this life, know that this isn't where they paid.
no, no, it'll come back around. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's all happening. Um, all right,
I
I
didn't
got
know that.
one last really important thing that I want to hit
Okay.
before I get into some Oklahoma stuff, because I want to hear something happened down in Oklahoma, uh, and that is a brand new article right here. Let me show you this. This
Okay.
is in MedRx, which means this is a peer-reviewed article. It's preprint, so it's not peer-reviewed yet, but it's interesting because Yale's talking about it. It's in MedRx, everything else, and it will likely be printed. I would imagine that it will get in there, and it's really interesting because the article. Here's the summary of the article, and everybody loves when I read science summaries because no one ever falls asleep. Um, COVID-19 vaccines have prevented millions of COVID deaths. That's a lie. Yet a small fraction, that's also a lie, it's a large fraction, of the population reports chronic debilitating condition after COVID vaccination. That's the people who didn't die from it, often referred to as post-vaccination syndrome, also known as long COVID, although they lie about that too. To explore potential pathobiological features associated with post-vaccination syndrome, which is PVS, we conducted a decentralized cross-sectional study involving a whopping 42 PVS participants and 22 healthy controls enrolled in the Yale Listen study. Compared with controls, PVS participants exhibited differences in immune profiles, including reduced circulating memory and effector CD4 T cells, and an increase in TNF alpha and CD8 T cells. PVS participants also had lower anti-spike antibody titers, primarily due to the fewer vaccine doses. Serological evidence of recent Epstein-Barr virus reactivation was observed more frequently in PVS patients. Further, individuals with PVS exhibited elevated levels of circulating spike protein compared to healthy controls. These findings reveal potential immune differences in individuals with PVS that merit further investigation to better understand this condition and inform future research into diagnostic and therapeutic approaches. Did that make 100% to you? Sense to you?
Well, it made a little more sense than I think maybe it made to the average person. Basically, it said that you have heart issues and have more issues, the circulatory, right, with your blood if you took the vaccine. Like your your body is not circulating. Your body is not working.
No.
That's the layman's term. That's it.
Yeah, basically a short thing. You get the vax, you're going to be FUBAR.
Yeah, I mean that's
Your body's going FUBAR. So, and that's the truth, right? So here's the thing. What they're talking about here is a very common thing, and we're seeing it all over the place. This is the side effects from the vaccine. The vaccine messes up your body, and it does it to everyone. It's not most of them, it's everybody. It's just which side effects you get, right? Everybody who gets this vaccine has issues. The question is what issues you have. Some people have more severe issues, some people have less severe issues. But at the end of the day, this vaccine puts a genetic material in your body that gets into your cells and teaches your cells to produce the spike protein from SARS-CoV-2. The spike protein is the pathogen. So if your body is producing the thing that makes you sick, well, it's going to cause problems, isn't it?
well, yeah.
Now,
It's
not to
focusing
mention,
on where your weak point is. That's what's going to hit. Because
yeah, well, and not to mention the fact that, you are introducing new genetic material into your body, which, is kind of an issue. I mean, call me stupid. You talk about throwing a wrench into the gearbox. This is absurd, right?
it
This is
is.
this whole thing is one of the most mind-blowingly stupid things I've ever seen. And, yet we continue to double down with these mRNA poisons. Now, mark my words, they are going to throw the COVID vaccine under the bus very slowly and very gently. They will not in any way, shape, or form, stop their backing of mRNA. mRNA as a platform is the problem. We have mapped our genome. Okay, so we've succeeded in mapping our genome. That said, 98% of our DNA does not code for proteins, and we don't know what it does do. In fact, a lot of scientists say, well, it doesn't do anything. Oh, so God gave 98%. So I'll tell you what, change that 98% and see what happens. Yeah, you go ahead and change that, see what happens. I'm guessing you'll see some issues, right? But we have these buffoons out there, they don't know what it does. And so when we start introducing genetic material into our bodies, we have no idea how it affects a huge portion of our DNA. And it doesn't matter whether this integrates into your DNA or not. You're still throwing stuff in there that's gumming up the whole system. You don't know what it does. You don't know how it works. Why are you screwing with it?
Exactly. This is not therapy. This is an experimentation. This is an experiment. You are the test subject. Even they don't know what it's going to do. They'll say what they want. Idea. This is all an experiment.
100%.
It's disgusting that they would put this out on the human race without saying this is an experiment. And
it's a crime against humanity.
Literally. It absolutely is.
The single greatest crime against humanity in the history of mankind. This will, in my opinion, I believe that when it's all said and done, that more deaths will be fairly attributed to COVID and the vaccines than World War II. And that's saying something because these COVID vaccines and this COVID disease were both created in a lab with intent.
Well, I think that's if they tell the truth, because there's a lot of people that I've seen die and they're not giving the credit to the vaccine.
Oh, I know.
Giving the credit to COVID. Do you know how many women I know that had the vaccine, that have had a baby, that had, if they made it through the pregnancy, the baby came early and was in ICU for months. And this is an epidemic that wasn't happening before.
Yeah. And it crosses into the baby. It crosses the placental barrier.
And I know several people, I mean, not just one or two, that's been the case. And the ICU neonatal units are saying they're overwhelmed. This is something like they've never seen before.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
Yeah. No, I got to tell you, Bobby needs to get on this. I understand he's busy. I understand what he's doing. He needs to get on this, and he needs to get on it quickly. This needs to be moving. I don't know what the hell's going on down there, but this needs to be moving as fast as Doge is moving. Why are we dicking around with this? We are dinking around while people are dying, while kids are getting this. I mean, we're worried about measles. Measles is nothing. Nobody cares. Get measles. Don't get them MR shot when you have measles. You won't die. But, measles, I mean, everybody had measles years ago. Nobody cares about that. I mean, who cares? We're worried about
when I was a kid, do you remember that? If somebody had chicken pox or measles, you'd be like, hey, go get around them because you haven't had that yet. You need to get it over with.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I mean, it's not
chicken pox parties or measles parties or whatever.
Yes. It's insane. It just is.
Yeah, it's meaningless. And then once you had it, you had lifelong immunity. Lifelong.
Well, I think RFK Jr. is having a harder time because while Doge is he's putting a lot out there and he's exposing a lot. The enemies with RFK Jr., I think, are a lot bigger. The ones where they've come against us with the medical industry, and they have a long range plan. I think that it's a much bigger enemy, and we really need to be praying for him.
Well, I think that Bobby needs to. He's got to shift tactics. He can't keep trying to play nice with these guys. Trump came in and he dropped bombs and he hit hard and he exploded, and he had to because it's the only way to get things done. He knew what was going to happen here. Bobby has came in and he's tried to be more reasonable and work with people, and I understand he had to work hard to get his position, and I'm glad that he's there. But you're there, so do it. Get to work. Drop these bombs. Right. Listen, do you know that I could, if given the authority, I could within a week take these things out in their entire, because it's not hard. We know, the government knows how dangerous they are. They've been tracking it. I've got the documents. I know where to look. I know where to look, right? So if Bobby doesn't know where to look, there's a problem. And I love Bobby and I'm supporting Bobby, but get moving here. And on the COVID vaccines, on mRNA particularly, we need to be moving. Why are we still also the food supply? You know, you want to talk about food. Why the hell are we still slaughtering chickens? Why are we going to authorize a bird flu vaccine for cows that's based on mRNA? Why are we doing these things? I mean, did we get Bobby there for a reason or not? Now, I know he's got stuff to do, but do it. Get moving.
Yeah,
we can't keep going backwards. We're going the wrong direction here. Okay, you're going to ban red dye number 40? Yippee! Who the hell cares? Meanwhile,
well, that's a big one, but we need him to keep going.
My food
keep
elsewhere.
Going. Yeah, we do. He's got to. You're right. He's not moving nearly as fast. He's moving at the rate we are used to seeing, and we know that it can go faster. And that's what we're wanting.
Well, it can move a lot faster. And my advice to him would be, listen, if you don't get moving and take a more aggressive approach, you're going to accomplish nothing. You're going to get done with this term and you're going to have banned red dye number 40 and that's it. And no one's going to give a damn. You know, that's not the way. Listen, we want Bobby in there because we know that he's a warrior. We know he knows what's going on and we know he can get it done. Now, I'm not saying go in there and ban all vaccines tomorrow. But where is the transparency that we've all been asking for? He could have approved every FOIA immediately. He could have said, I want every FOIA answered and fulfilled in a week. And that no reason that's not done. He could have opened up the Project Salus documents and showed those to the public. I can show them right where they are. All he's got to do is go get them. He could have best cyber. I mean, we've got all these different databases where they're collecting data on COVID vaccine injuries. Where are those? Make them public. The outrage, the public outrage would shut down this real quick. He'd be politically in the winning, but he's got to actually do it. And if he can't get it done because he's got people who are refusing, much like at the DOJ, fire them now.
Right. That's right.
You got to get in there. You got to clean house. That's what we want you there for. Not to make friends, not to work with the bureaucracy, you're not going to be able to. You aren't going to be able to work with people that have sold their soul that are going to go to jail when the truth comes out.
Yep.
So anyways, I'm more than a little frustrated about this right now. And to my mind, I think that we've got to take some more aggressive steps at HHS, much more. Someone says, well, he's waiting for Bhattacharya to get in there. I don't care if he's waiting for Bhattacharya. He doesn't need to wait for Bhattacharya to get in there.
Well, they've been aggressively killing us, making us sick. So let's be aggressive back.
I'm looking at this as a lawyer, right? As a lawyer, I don't need to wait for more evidence if I have the evidence that I need, right?
Yeah.
The evidence is just, it's running out of our ears. We don't need more evidence. In 2022, I felt we had more than enough evidence to shut down everything and to win lawsuits and do these things. Now, you couldn't do it because you have a corrupt group of people from the Biden administration on down and some of their appointees. But in terms of the actual evidence, it was there. If you've got a platform like Bobby Kennedy has now and the evidence available, you could change everything like that.
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? We need to pick up that pace. And this is not meant to undermine or attack Bobby. This is meant to be, Bobby, we need you to get moving. You need to be more aggressive. You need to get going on this stuff. You're there. You got the job. Do the job. Get it moving.
We were for you getting there. We still support you. So move.
We're fighting for you. We're fighting for you. We'll continue fighting for you. But, I'm not looking. I have no interest in trying to be political buddies with a bunch of crooks. If you're not willing to look at the truth, if you're not willing to fight for the truth, if you're not into, the transparency that Bobby was talking about, and remember, I got the same perspective he does in terms of being a lawyer. I don't need to be able to perform the science. I can read it. I can understand it. Right? I'm not a scientist, but I can read it and I can understand it. And if the science shows that there's fraud, I can see that. And if the science was done fraudulently, I can see that as well because I can look at it. I mean, that's what that's what you do if you do the kind of law that he's done for years and years and years. Or you got to look at science. And part of your job as an attorney is to test in court. Is this science BS or is it real? Because sometimes you sue over that, right? Bobby knows that this is garbage. He's got good science and good people on his side. He can get all this done. He just needs to get it done. He needs to move. He needs to be moving on this stuff. He needs to make it happen. And he needs to do it much more aggressively, in my opinion. So we got your back, Bobby. We're standing behind you. But come on, let's get this moving a little bit quicker.
I'm with you.
So, anyways. You got any big updates? Well, I talked to the end of the show. I'm sorry, but you got any big updates for us in Oklahoma?
Well, Oklahoma grassroots are doing amazing. The grassroots they took 3 more counties this weekend. Awesome. Very exciting. We have the large majority. One of the counties was one of the biggest counties in the state, actually the second largest, and I didn't think that would ever be taken back because the establishment was so firm. And they are the ones, Tom, that brought in unapologetically the gentleman that was talking crap about you and General Flynn and me and Clay. And they
gentleman, he was an asshole.
And all of them are gone. We took every seat in that county. And it's
Wonderful.
Just a beautiful thing that we're seeing. The grassroots are talking, and we have the majority. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. Hopefully we can get some transparency now. So, we talked last week or the week before about the budget committee and how we had to censure the chairman because he can't, he refuses to let us see any finances. So we're getting the majority. Like I said, the large majority. So taking Tulsa County was a huge deal. We took 2 other counties over the weekend, and I'm excited about the direction.
Well, that's awesome. I love that. I love hearing that. And, listen, folks, Charity is really doing marvelous work, and you need to support her. You need to support her at the Freedom Brigades. And this is no joke. I mean, if you take back the Republican Party, you're going to take back the country, right? The Republican Party has been putting forth rhinos and sellouts for a long time because the bad guys knew if they could take the party, they could control the party and put forth bad people. That's what's been happening. So I wanted to ask you, please go to TomRenz.com, and get up there and get to the Freedom Brigades, right? You want to get to the Freedom Brigades, join them. But also get Cardio Miracle, by the way, Cardio Miracle. But go to the Freedom Brigades, sign up, support them. We've got to do this in every state in the country. Charity's got the formula. She knows what she's doing. She knows how she's doing it. She can help us do it. We just got to keep fighting. She's doing an amazing job. So get your butt in there. Just get help in your state. If we can take the GOP back across this country, we can retake the country. We can make a country MAGA again. We can get rid of these rhinos and neocons, and we can make the GOP what it was actually supposed to be. The party of Lincoln, the party of Reagan, the party of Trump. Which
I agree. And, Tom, it's not me. There's a bunch of people leading this movement, and we're working together because it can't be one person. So if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, I'll let them do it, I'll let somebody else do it, it has to be you. Yep. You have to get involved because that's how we win is with our numbers.
No other way to do it. And there is no other way that you can win this fight. I mean, you've got to get involved personally. You've got to get active. You've got to stand. I mean, listen, 100%. We need people in seats. We need butts in seats. Each committee seat and each district and each state needs to be filled with the butt of a good grassroots mega conservative. We got to get rid of these rhinos. That's why we have so many problems. The rhinos control the party, and so the rhinos make sure that other rhinos are running. That's why we have a Congress full of rhinos. That's why we have a Congress full of people who won't stand for anything. The party controls the money. You can't get elected without the party's backing. So take control of the party and you free our nation. Thanks for listening. Charity, thanks for being here. We will be back very soon.